75th anniversary of the formation of Riverside County. This debate that you are about to hear is similar to those debates that took place in 1893 in preparation for the formation of our county. The debate was written by Steve Leck, who I consider the chief historian of Riverside County and an author of many books with topics about Riverside County. You are going to hear a lively debate between Mr. Darrell Farnbach, my husband, who is going to represent against the con version of forming Riverside County.
The sensible choice, San Bernardino County, all the way.
And Mr. Dick Fox, who is in favor of Riverside County. I'm going to step out of the way and let the games begin.
Well, first of all, I'm going to give you just a little bit of a background here to kind of set the stage for our debate. I don't know how many of you have heard my talk before here, but I'm going to kind of abbreviate it because you're not here to hear me. You're here to hear our distinguished gentleman here. But I did want to kind of set the stage for you as to what was going on at that time and what led us to have a debate not unlike what you're going to see tonight here. And you have to understand that when most of our towns here in what's now Riverside County were started, they were started in either San Bernardino or San Diego County, because that's what was going on here from about 1853 until 1893. This was how the counties were shown. Basically today what is Corona, Paruba, Riverside, Moreno Valley, Beaumont, and the north half of Banning were all in San Bernardino County. Everybody else, Paris, Hemet, San Jacinto, Murrieta, Temecula, the mountains and the desert, started in San Diego County. Yeah. And there's a lot of goings on here at this time. I can give you a little bit better idea of where this line is. Basically, if you see that little hiccup in the line there, that's pretty much the northwest corner of the San Jacinto Rancho. Now, at this time, lines were drawn for the map makers. You notice how that line parallels the Mexican border? Well, that's because it was very easy for the map maker. You just take your compass and you draw it nice and parallel like that. Problem is, that wasn't surveyed out there because there was really nothing to go by. And so there are a lot of issues with having communities up here so close to the line. That was one of the issues that we were dealing with at this time here. Well, in the 1870s, we're getting communities up here, San Jacinto, etc., and there's a lot of goings on, Elsinore too, and what's happening is people are starting to think maybe what we ought to do, because we're so far away from the county seat, which is in San Diego County, is simply move the line to incorporate some of these communities into San Bernardino. San Bernardino was the economic hub at this time, and a lot of people shopped there, etc., but of course, in order to conduct county business, you had to go to the county seat. So if you lived here in Temecula at the time, or San Jacinto or whatever, you had to schlep your way all the way down to San Diego. And that could be for jury duty, that could be to argue your assessment, something very simple. Could take you 3 days to do, maybe an hour's worth of time, and 3 days back. Yeah. So by the 1880s, when development's picking up, towns are becoming more incorporated and also bigger, we're starting to see these ideas of moving the county line or eventually start a whole new county then. And that really picks up now in 1890. Because well, let me back up and say, what does it take to create a county in California? You have to have legislation passed by both houses, the Senate and the Assembly, signed by the governor, and then you have to have a vote of the electorate. And that vote has to be a 2/3 majority of, at this time, all the people in the proposed county. And that was kind of one of our aces in the hole, is that it only included the people in the proposed county. So if you lived in San Bernardino, or you lived in San Diego, or Oceanside, or Fallbrook, or whatever, you didn't get to vote. Yeah. Even though we were going to be taking land from that county, which could be used for assessment purposes and funding the county. Yeah. So anyway, by 1890, also, the state legislature at this time only met during January, February, and March of the odd-numbered years. And so everything has to be on that timetable. So by 1890 now, we've got a couple of county division proposals going here that are getting ready for that 1891 state legislative meeting. One of which is Pomona County to our west there. That was going to be Pomona, Ontario, Cucamonga, Chino, Azusa, and a few other towns. Sort of at the, well, because LA was starting to want to be its own city county, and so they didn't want to be part of it. In the purple there, you see San Jacinto County. And that was a move here in the northern part of San Diego County to simply lob off the northern third of San Diego County and create a new county with San Jacinto as its county seat there. The line, the straight line there is the current county boundary. And again, that's done at the behest of the map makers. That is, in surveyors' term, the second standard parallel south of the baseline. Which probably doesn't mean anything to anybody here, but back in the day when you were doing surveying, that meant a lot. Basically, you know baseline, you know the baseline where the surveyors is taken, Baseline Avenue in San Bernardino. From there, your township and range system is set up. A standard parallel is 24 miles south of that. So that line is exactly 48 miles south of Baseline Avenue in San Bernardino. Yeah. So that's what they decided to use. The arguments, of course, were that San Diego was quite a ways away. That was one of them. Also the issues with San Diego's government. This is what prompted, though, these two things is what prompted Riverside to get into the fray. Yeah. Because Riverside, you know, all the old history books tell you Riversiders and San Bernardino folks didn't get along. And that was absolutely true. We couldn't have two more diametrically opposed towns so close together. San Bernardino, founded by the Mormons, by the late 1850s, the Mormons had been recalled. And San Bernardino became the commercial hub, the lumbering hub, the mining hub, attracted, of course, miners, desertmen, lumbermen. We had saloons, abundant saloons, a red light district, etc. On the other side of the river is Riverside, set up as a utopian colony by John Wesley North. You can figure probably pretty well Methodist there. We did not outlaw saloons, but we taxed them almost into oblivion. None of the other things. So we in Riverside looked on San Bernardino folks as, you know, those heathen up there, and San Bernardino folks looked on Riversiders as those snobs to the south. We always thought that we would be out of San Bernardino County at some point because there were a lot of issues with the government at this time. Yeah. This map, though, in very late and we're talking like after Christmas, between Christmas and New Year's of 1890. Threw Riversiders into a fit, because if those had gone through, we would be in San Bernardino County forever. Yeah. And so Riversiders got together and put together a Riverside County proposal of our own. All of these went up to the state legislature. All of them were argued. The Pomona County thing was almost immediately defeated. San Jacinto County took a little bit longer. And Riverside County was passed by the Assembly and then went to the Senate, where it ran into a bunch of problems. We were now looking for a new U.S. Senator. Our U.S. Senator, George Hearst, William Randolph Hearst's father, had died in office, and the Senate was going to be voting on a new one. There were a lot of shenanigans going on with that got infiltrated with the people who wanted to create Riverside County. Basically, the people who were against the creation of it demanded a investigation into potential bribery. By the time that was done, they came back and said, we can't find anything. The problem is it was literally the last day of the legislative meeting. We couldn't get the bills heard, and it went down to defeat because of lack of a vote. Yeah. So everybody went back to their camps, because now you got to wait 2 years, because you've got to wait till January of '93. And so all these people were going back, trying to figure out what's going on and what's going to go on until 1893, the beginning of 1893, when these three proposals went up to the state legislature. Pomona County was renamed San Antonio. Obviously it didn't help them. The San Jacinto County folks had been taken over by a group that was favorable to San Bernardino, and a lot of shenanigans were going on with that, and a lot of people there and in Riverside said, let's just combine the two and make a larger Riverside County. Yeah. So at this point now, all these things are kind of going together, and people are going and having meetings in all the different cities, all throughout this region. They're having debates, they're having votes, they're having all kinds of things going on. What should we do? Should we vote this in? Should we not? That's where our debate tonight comes in, because this debate is taken from a lot of the very arguments that were put forth by various people at the time, and generally written about in the newspapers. I use the Riverside Enterprise, the Riverside Press and Horticulturist. I use the San Jacinto Register, the Elsinore News, and a number of other newspapers to cull a lot of the arguments that you're going to hear tonight then into this. As Rebecca said, on our pro side, we have Dick Fox, going to tell us why we should vote for Riverside County. And on the con side, we have Mr. Darrell Farmbach, who's going to tell us why we should not vote for it. This is an interactive thing. By all means, feel free to yay, boo, what have you. I noticed our Facebook page said do not bring fruit tonight, so nobody did. Can't grow fruit, etc. But I'm going to open it up to our debaters, and then when they're done, I'll continue the story about what happened and how we created the county. So, gentlemen.
Just throw some cake.
No, do not throw the cake. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and my learned, well-dressed opponent. Tonight we have before us a proposition of erstwhile importance, that being, should we create Riverside County? To that I say undoubtedly yes. The people residing in the territory shown on the map wish to be set out as a separate county, and respectfully ask your favorable consideration of this proposition. Petitions which you are invited to inspect show that 3/4 of the voters in this district have asked to be allowed to govern themselves. The right of local self-government culminates in the county government. In national and state affairs, the citizen is removed from the manifestation of public power. His sovereignty is most nearly in his hand in the county organization. Here, if anywhere, the will of the people should prevail. For too long, Riverside has lingered in the shadow of San Bernardino and her political machine. Riverside has contributed far more to the state's growth and importance than has her antagonist, and this is generally recognized. The right of self-government cannot be properly denied to so important a section, and our cause is too well known throughout the state to be howled down by men whose selfish motives in doing so are so evident.
What my learned colleague, Mr. Fox, does not mention on this point is that the creation of a new county will only serve to alter the balance of power in the state legislature. A situation that the Republican-controlled legislature will not want to create. With a united county, the political power and influence will be greater. Larger counties, like larger states, wield the preponderance of power. Divided into pieces, we shall have little political significance, and even less than Orange County did in the last election. Then again, the old county, San Bernardino, would fall into the lap of the Democratic Party. And even now, the Democratic politicians of our city are doing all in their power to help the Riverside scheme. As a political measure, the scheme can have no standing before the Republican legislature.
Allow me to demonstrate exactly the reasons for wanting local control of our government. For the past 3 years that we have advocated for county division, assessments have risen in those areas prone to advocate for county division and decreased in those areas that have not. The assessed valuation of the 9 school districts in the lauded commercial center of the Citrus Belt went from $5,241,000 in 1889 to $4,500,000 in 1890, a more than 14% reduction. Meanwhile, in the 9 school districts proposed to be put in Riverside County, assessed valuation rose from $5,730,000 to $6,487,000, a more than 13% increase.
What my learned colleague Mr. Fox continues to spout his rhetoric about unfair assessments. This is a point that has been refuted time and time again by the San Bernardino County Board of Supervisors. It is well known that the State Board of Equalization has for years insisted that Riverside is not assessed anywhere near 1/2 its cash value on property and improvements. This has been a big fight with the State Board for years. In the matter, the expenditures Riverside and her tributary territories have exceeded quite largely her bridges, horticultural businesses, etc., and would be largely in debt to the balance of the county were a settlement made. And now, a point regarding Riverside's wealth. Has anyone promoting the Riverside County scheme taken the time to consider whence Riverside's wealth comes? I'm talking, of course, about its water, without which Riverside reverts to a plain, a dusty plain it was a mere 25 years ago. Riverside obtains its entire water supply from sources lying within what has always will be San Bernardino County. Whatever flumes, ditches, and other property values fall within the old county will be taxed at their full cash value. Then again, the water of Warm Creek has never been litigated to any extent. Every inch of its water will be contested sooner or later before a San Bernardino County jury. These jurors will be inclined to favor citizens of their own counties, if possible, in deciding questions of fact over which the judge has no control.
Our fight is not with the good citizens of San Bernardino County who would make up those juries, but with the political machine that is the government of San Bernardino County. To imply, as my opponent has, that Riversiders would not get a fair trial in San Bernardino courts is an insult to the fair-minded people of the older city, and they should recognize this and support Riverside in its efforts. Besides, our proposed separation from San Bernardino County involves a mere 800 square miles of its large territory, encompassing in whole some 23,270 square miles, and we're only asking for 800. Why do the interests of San Bernardino County fight our proposition so? A reduction of 800 square miles from our parent county results in a net loss of only 3.5%. The largest portion of our proposed Riverside County would come from San Diego County, and they have not entered a protest to our proposal.
While it's true that San Bernardino County is very large, it must be remembered that of the 23,270 square miles, nearly 22,000 of it lay north of the mountains and is virtually uninhabited and unassessed desert. The remainder of the county consists of only approximately 1,270 square miles within the fruit-growing regions of the valley. Of this, 800 square miles are proposed to be commandeered to go into Riverside County, and 250 square miles are similarly trying to be annexed into Pomona County, thus leaving a mere 220 square miles of valuable fruit-growing land left to support the vast desert and mountain area. These county grabbers, therefore, asked San Bernardino to run a county government on 220 square miles. The proposition is ridiculous and absurd.
Yay! Yay!
I guess I'm still going.
Yep.
Should the proposition carry, however, Riverside County will have a population taken from this county of about 6,000 people, and perhaps 15 more taken from San Diego County. The assessable value of the property will be about $7 million, upon which all the taxes for the county purposes will have to be levied. Of this tax, the city of Riverside will pay about one half. A new courthouse will have to be erected at the cost of $300,000. A new set of county offices will have to be supported at an annual cost of $25,000. The county road fund will have to be levied at 35 cents on the $100. A hospital will have to be built at the expense of $30,000. It will run an annual expense of another $30,000. A state tax will have to be paid of 55 cents or thereabouts. A school tax will be levied of almost 20 cents, and the fund for general purposes of 30 cents more. The city school and bond taxes will be about 50 cents. Now, computing interest on the bonds at the low rate of 5%, and adding all other annual expenditures and tax levies of the city of Riverside will foot a bill of $3.10 on the 100 per annum, not counting anything for liquidation of the bonded indebtedness. Glazing over on this one. Hardly any good businessman would seek the city of Riverside or any of the territory located within its county for investment under such circumstances. We have possibly figured for a first-class building because if cheap ones are to be put up, it would be cheaper to remain in the old county a few years longer. If any of the Riverside County boomers think these figures too high, let them seek knowledge from any good businessman who are in the position to know what it costs to run a county government in good style. And Riverside must have style or bust.
The claim of the enemies of the Riverside movement that to divide would be to throw the expense of keeping up the desert country on the remainder of the old county after division is a false alarm for effect only. The desert country is self-supporting, a revenue of $40,000 yearly coming from taxes on railroads and mines. The further claim of our enemies that division means a hardship on that portion of the county left as the old county is not based on facts. The taxable property which would be left in the old county would be 5 times greater and afford more revenue than the whole county did in 1880. Yet at last mentioned year, there was no complaint that the revenues of government did not meet the expenses. In 1880, the assessment was $2,576,000, and after division, the assessment in the county of San Bernardino would still be at $12,452,000. Evidently, the cry of non-supporting county is not based on facts and figures.
Let us now turn to the intentions of Riverside itself. We particularly look at the defeat of the Riverside Division Bill as it is a thieving scheme for aspiring politicians. And as every third man you meet would rather play sheriff or assessor than earn a living as a tiller of the soil. The drones are in favor of county division as there are not enough offices to go around. Riches have turned the heads of the inhabitants of Riverside, riches that flow exclusively from San Bernardino. Riversiders desire to leave the mother now that they are in the gold. A few buildings which constitute Riverside proper must be dignified by the designation of county seat. And in order to accomplish this, it is deemed necessary to cut loose from San Bernardino and go it alone. Such threatening action hardly evinces gratitude and is childish and reprehensible in the extreme. Why then does Riverside attempt it? She answers that the building of a new courthouse against her wishes has much to do with the all-pervading animus, and coupled with other reasons, mostly ridiculous, makes it her duty to sever cord and union. What a pity that Riverside, blinded by spite and pity, instead of being proud to see the county seat adorned, she closes her eyes and groans with envy. Her pious optics cannot bear to behold so goodly a palace in the midst of those whom she designates men of sin. In short, because Riverside could not awe the supervisors into compliance with their lawless demands, she threatens not only to untie the flail band, but to deprive us of our much additional territory.
Men from San Bernardino who are talking against the Riverside bill are a lot of public crib politicians and public pap newspaper men, while the men who represent the Riverside proposition are men who have been largely instrumental in making Riverside, or San Bernardino County what it is today, despite what those in the much lauded county seat would have you believe. County division is sure to come. No effort of the boodlers at the county seat will avail any longer. The cause of the people living in the new county is a just one, and justice cannot be defeated by the corrupt use of money. This cumbersome and unwieldy county should and must be divided in the interest of the taxpayers. A division of the county would be, we know, a fatal blow to the grain, which has so long fed at the public crib. But that fact is an argument, and a strong one, in favor of division. It is pretty well understood now that the work of getting together the SAC in San Bernardino to fight division is underway. But such tactics will not prevail. We assure the deluded victims of the bosses at the county seat who are putting up the coin.
We want to see the Riverside scheme defeated, and we'll do all in our power to reach that end. The mass of the people in Riverside and other towns do not want county division. The scheme is only fathered by a few would-be county officers who cannot acquire positions in the county where they now reside. What claim has Riverside for a new county? None. Let our people fight this proposition to the bitter end. There is one thing we can now realize, and that is it is all foolishness to try to bring about a reconciliation between San Bernardino and Riverside. They can never be friends, but still Riverside must remain in San Bernardino County. I'm convinced that the next legislature will kill the Riverside bill, and so be it.
To conclude, the proposed county of Riverside is a compact body of land united in interest and industry, being almost entirely given to fruit production, largely orange growing. The people are alike in manners and customs, and above all, are earnest in their endeavor to better their condition and surroundings. Their move for division is not from malice, but for reasons of economy and business. Their petition is based upon the American privilege guaranteed this people by the Constitution. Besides, the good and substantial reasons why our petitions should be granted that I have outlined tonight is the further fact that many leading citizens of both San Bernardino and San Diego counties, outside the portions wanting to be set off, have acknowledged the justness of our request. We are only opposed to the political wire pullers and small fry politicians who see, as it were, their fat berths threatened with short-livedness in our withdrawal. Our petition is a square business proposition based on business principles, and while it may discommode some, it does not injure anyone and should not be granted. Should be granted.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Well, debates like this were held throughout the area, and this continued well into the legislative session here. By then, during the legislative session, all these people, for and against, wend their way up to Sacramento, putting forth these arguments, not unlike what you heard here. And the bill, of course, was introduced there. The various and sundry county division proposals went through. The San Antonio one was defeated, the San Jacinto one was defeated, and the Riverside one was approved. And this is a shot of downtown Riverside, February 24th, 1893, when the Assembly, when it was announced that the Assembly had passed it. That was the second body there. You'll notice, if you happen to know Riverside, this is 8th Street looking east at Main there. You see the people on the far left gathered around that little placard that's up? They're right in front of the telegraph office. And that placard says this. San Bernardino, her goose is cooked. A long farewell to all her greatness, owed us over thus. They tried to roll and lynch us and do us up brown. They climbed up Jacob's ladder, but the Lord drove them down. We fought the battle bravely, in the county we have won, and now we have the victory. They will see more of the fun. And those names in quotes are actual names of politicians from San Bernardino. This was basically their way of flipping them off on a basis. Roll was the judge who constantly went against us. Lynch was one of the former state senators who would not allow the bill to go in for a while in 1891. Jacob is Jacob Victor, the president of the County Board of Supervisors, who constantly voted against us. He would later become part of Victorville. That's where that name comes from. Isaac Lord of Lordsburg, which became Laverne, there was part of it. And so this keeps going on and on and on. We're basically flipping the bird to San Bernardino here. It took a little while, but March 11th of 1893, the governor signed the bill for Riverside, Kings, and Madera County, all three at once, because all three of those counties were formed on the same day then. But of course, we had to have an election then. And so the governor appointed these 5 men to be the Riverside County Board of Commissioners. This is not the Board of Supervisors. This was a body that was set up strictly to effect the election, draw up school districts, voting districts, etc., and carve up the county, make sure everything worked. Then David Mitchell from Paris, insurance man, one of the very few Confederate veterans to make a name for himself from the Civil War. Most of the people out here are Methodists, Unionists, abolitionists, etc. David Mitchell's one of the few Confederate veterans to make any name for himself. Frank Miller, probably know of him from the from the Mission Inn, which he would be building in about 10 years from this picture. John McLaren of San Jacinto, Bradford Morse of Riverside became our first assessor then, and Orlando Smith, another hotel man from Corona, or what became Corona there. They set up the election districts, and this is how the election turned out. We had to have a 2/3 majority. We ended up with about 72% of the electorate. Big red is the big hot spots that were for us. Obviously around Riverside. Riverside constituted 40% of the population at the time. And so that, of course, weighed heavily. Down in the southwest where we are right now, that was a big hotbed too then. What consisted of an elector at the time? Any natural born or naturalized male citizen over the age of 21, but no idiot, insane person, or Chinaman. Those are your voters at this time. They've gotten away from having to be a property owner, which had been in years past. We no longer had to be a property owner, but you had to be a natural born or naturalized male citizen over 21 who wasn't insane, an idiot, or a Chinaman. And so with that, then we passed and Riverside became a county. Then May 9th, the election was May 2nd. Took them a week to get all the ballots back. So May 9th, we became a county when that Board of Commissioners declared us a county here. So we have that, but why did we get Riverside County? And that's another thing. We heard the arguments both for and against, and to be honest with you, a lot of the arguments against are very valid arguments. Then. Where did Riverside's wealth come from? San Bernardino. And you probably noticed too, there was not a lot of talk about San Diego County. San Diego County at this time had its own problems, not the least of which most of the government had been thrown out by the grand jury due to incompetence, money laundering, etc. The grand jury had excused from service the sheriff, the assessor, the tax collector, and all 5 of the Board of Supervisors. Yeah. Plus, the area that was going to be taken from San Diego County was largely not highly accessible. Most of this area up here, including where we are, is dryland farming. It's not very accessible. So we're not losing an awful lot tax-wise from them. There were a couple of moves to bring county offices up here in an attempt to keep this region, but for the most part, San Diego County did not really have much to say. San Bernardino County was what was going to be losing a lot. You have to realize that in 1895, now 2 years after this, Riverside and the greater Riverside area had the highest per capita income in the country because of that citrus. And that was a very valuable, very accessible lots of land that was worth a lot and could bring in money to the county coffers. This is why San Bernardino was very much up against it. Yeah. However, Riverside had the ace in the hole, or the 900-pound gorilla, or whatever you want to call them, in our camp, and that was the Southern Pacific Railroad. The Southern Pacific Railroad at this time basically owned the state legislature. If you wanted something through the California legislature at this time, you had to have the SP on your side, or else you were out of luck. Why? When the SP built through California, it was given 20 square miles of land for every mile of rails that it laid. Obviously, that's a lot of land, and they're paying taxes on that land. So, you heard a lot about the differing opinions on the assessments. Here's what an independent group came up with. The parent counties, we had about $1.55 to $1.60 per $100 in assessments. That's San Bernardino and San Diego. Proposed Riverside County, we're looking at about $1.45 because, again, of that assessed land of the citrus. Proposed San Jacinto County, you're looking at $2.25 to $2.50 because we didn't have that very wealthy, valuable land here. The SP said, basically told James Green of the San Jacinto Bank, we're not going to allow it. We're going to compel you to go in with Riverside. Yeah. At the same time, the SP was trying to get into Riverside. Ever since 1885, when we started really exporting our citrus, we were doing it on the Santa Fe rails because that was what was in or near Riverside at the time. The SP wanted a bit of that. About 10 years beforehand, though, the SP was involved in a legal suit. Our buddy Frank Miller up there intervened on their behalf. And there's a letter in the Miller collection in the Riverside Metropolitan Museum because Mr. Miller was able to get the dogs off of the SP. And on the SP letterhead, there's a letter up there that says, we owe you a favor, call it. And he basically did. And so, at the same time, San Bernardino had pissed them off royally in the early 1880s. How did they build the railroad? They built it by going to towns along the way and basically extorting money from them, saying, you need to pay us, because they didn't have a lot of operating cash, you need to pay us and we'll bring the railroad to you. If you don't, we go around. That was a big deal when you're trying to ship stuff out to the East Coast. Yeah. San Bernardino had said no. And so they brought the railroad south. They bought the Slower Mountain Colony at the time and renamed it Colton for David Colton, their attorney. And almost strangled San Bernardino. They came that close to it. They remembered that. And so they weren't going to vote with San Bernardino at all. And at the same time, San Bernardino up there is arguing, you know, imagine you're this legislature and I'm from San Bernardino and I'm saying Riverside County is trying to buy votes. What am I accusing you of? Being on the take, right? Not exactly out of the how to win friends and influence people playbook there. So again, we had the 900-pound gorilla in the room on our side, and that, when you start looking at who voted for us in the legislature, really becomes apparent. Pretty much north of the Tehachapis, almost to a man, they all voted for us. The votes we got against us were in the LA region and of course San Bernardino there. And you got to figure, who the heck in Modoc County would care? Or Stanislaus County would care? Well, they did, because they were getting their orders from our buddies at the SP. So we had the SP where we wanted them and needed them. They wanted in. We had this kind of Faustian relationship that basically brought us the county there. 2 days after the county was formed, there's a little article in the Riverside Enterprise, the SP's right away to this city has been approved. Yeah. And so that's how we basically got our county. Our first county officers in the old Arlington Hotel there until we built our courthouse in 1903. Yeah. And so that's how we became a county. So when you look at why, it's that map that showed that Riverside was going to be in San Bernardino County forever. But if you ask how, it's because we had that 900-pound gorilla in the room on our side, and that was the SP. But they said, so. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the debate. Yeah, does anybody have any questions?
Just what isn't Colton and San Bernardino?
Speak up.
Isn't Colton and San Bernardino county?
Yes, it is. One of the rules of creating a county is you cannot have a county seat within 5 miles of the county boundary. You can believe that boundary line between Riverside and San Bernardino is right at the 5-mile mark. Colton was very much on our side, but we couldn't incorporate them because that would have brought the county line too close to San Bernardino. Yeah. So, but there were others too.
Were San Diego and San Bernardino counties formed when California became state? And when did Imperial County branch off from San Bernardino County?
Well, first, San Diego was basically the parent county of all the Southern California counties. That's the one that was formed in 1851.
1851?
Yeah, San Bernardino and LA. San Bernardino County took off most of LA County in 1853, right after they started. So that's why you get them. Now, when did Imperial County come? That was 1908. Yeah, when it was split basically half. In the 1893 legislature, they made it a rule that everybody in all of the affected counties gets to vote now. And that was one of the big arguments against it in 1893 when we were going, is because only those of us in proposed Riverside County got to vote. Now it's everyone, and that put a kibosh on pretty much all the county division proposals after that. Really, the only one that's been successful since then is Imperial County. So when you see these proposals to like break off the desert, for instance, well, we have to get everybody pretty much on our neck of the woods to vote for that too. It's probably not going to happen, because of the county division laws.
When Frank Norris wrote the Octopus, was that just about the California railways, or was it, was like a, you know?
No, that would have been nationwide.
Oh, it was, okay.
Yeah.
And what year around was that, do you know?
Oh, I have no idea.
Okay, have to read
No
it.
idea. Yeah. So, any other questions?
Yeah, he mentioned Warm Creek. Where's that?
Basically, just a little bit north of Colton, sort of in the Lytle Creek area.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see.
And Riversiders had bought water rights in there. Actually, it was John North who did, and really kind of secured our water right there. We still get a lot of our water from there too. So we had to go up that far to get it due to geography.
Was that close to Bucaramanga?
That's closer to San Jose. Closer to San Bernardino. Uh-huh.
How did Redlands fit into this? Didn't they have a lot of money at that point? And I don't know where they sat exactly.
Yeah, we thought Redlands was gonna join with us,
Uh-huh.
but they actually had their own county division scheme going at the time to incorporate basically the entire Bear Valley system. And that Bear Valley system, if you know Big Bear Lake, that was started as the lake that was the reservoir for Redlands. Frank Brown thought he had more water than he did, so he started developing other places. Moreno Valley, Paris, et cetera, et cetera. That all dried up. But the entire Bear Valley system that goes from the Mojave Desert down to about Elsinore was planned to be in its own county with Redlands as its head. Do you see the line above Riverside? And then you notice there's a little dip there before it goes out again? That's the area where Redlands was. And we thought, honestly, that Redlands was going to join with us because they were ticked off at San Bernardino also. We went there, held a debate not unlike this, and they basically told us to get out of Dodge. And that line went straight across and then angled up, and they didn't want any of their land, so we had to do that little juxtaposition right there. So that goes right around the Redlands subdivision there. And come to find out later, they were working on their own plan. But we seriously thought the Redlands would join us. Okay, any other,
Is Riverside named Riverside because there's a river there? Or
Yes. The Santa Ana River.
oh, the Santa Ana River?
Yeah. It's easier to pronounce than Haruba. That was the original name. But remember, we're marketing to people back east, almost none of whom have ever heard anything out of the Spanish language before. So we would have been Jarapa or something akin to that then. But again, you're marketing to people who think that everything west of the Mississippi is just one big desert. And so if you can call yourself Riverside, hey, we've got water here, then it works a lot better when you're trying to market yourself. Okay, any other questions? Okay, if not, I'll hand it back to Rebecca and, of course, to our gentleman.
Yeah, let's give Steve. Riverside County. How many will vote that way? And then, boom! The man from San Bernardino. Thanks so much. You know, before you go, I just wanted to mention, we had talked about one of our newspapers in the Valley tonight. We talked about Valley News, and we do appreciate the good press that they give us. They print one of Bonnie's historic articles every month, and they also advertise our meetings. But we have we have one other newspaper represented by two people here tonight. And Steve, you want to tell what you do for the Press Enterprise?
Yeah. Well, my friend Kim Johnson and I do a weekly local history article for the Western Riverside County region. That's Sunday morning. It's called Back in the Day. And we tag team it. Mine was yesterday, and then yours will be the next time. I don't know if you saw it. It was about the mission and potentially becoming a college.
All right, and the other person I'd like you to stand, Carl Love, who's a columnist for. Carl's been a friend and he of our historical society and of Vail Ranch Restoration Association. Do you care to say anything?
Well, I just write about like Temecula, Marietta, Menifee, that area. Like he obviously writes about, I guess, Western County.
Western Riverside County.
Yeah, and I just like for example, somebody emailed me something from Pennington, and I said, well, I'm sorry. I mean, that's what
They
they
have to
don't.
find another one for that one. Right?
Yeah, and I forwarded it to the person.
Good.
Yeah, and I didn't just like.
That's on his territory. So anyway, thanks, and thank you all for coming. Anyone who cares to